With us now is Dr. John Matsushima, and he is a research pioneer and international beef leader, also having taught at Colorado State University. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Let me start, as we look back at your history briefly, because you have a remarkable history. Born in Denver, raised in Lafayette, and yet in the days following 1941, the Pearl Harbor attack, you faced terrible discrimination, even being banned from some of the Fort Collins stores. We think we're in tough times today. Tell us how you got through what certainly must have been challenging times for you.
Well, I was a student at Colorado State University at that time. And since I was only about 21 years old, I don't think that kind of struck me very much. A number of my schoolmates really took care of me.
Good.
So when the stores wouldn't let me go into their place, the students would bring meal to me on Saturday evenings after dark.
Wow. So they took care of you.
Yes, and then we used to go on a number of trips. And whenever we went into a restaurant or tried to go in, several of the students ahead of me went in. But when it came to my turn, they said, no, you can't go in.
Wow.
And so thereafter, on other occasions, the coach, livestock judging coach, would take my order and go in, and we all ate our lunch in the car.
Oh, I see. Wow.
Yes.
So the CSU folks took good care of you.
They did.
I'm glad to hear that because my son is a CSU graduate, so this is good to hear. You persevered, you went on to complete your bachelor and master's degrees, followed by your PhD. You became a world-renowned expert in beef cattle feeding, and your innovations way back into the 1960s have helped to modernize and expand U.S. beef production, really. Having been referred to as sort of a game changer within the industry, what would you say is your greatest contribution to agriculture?
Well, I guess my suggestion to increase the feed intake by beef cattle, maybe we ought to feed them grain that is prepared by steam flaking. So the steam flaking grain process probably improved the efficiency of feed utilization. And so this helped the cost of beef prices by probably around 10%.
Wow, that's pretty remarkable. So how did you get an interest in all of this to make it your life's work?
Well, I used to consult with three of the largest cattle feeders in the world, and one was Mr. Momfort.
Oh, sure.
Another one was Mr. Louis Dinklage of Nebraska. Mm-hmm. And the other person was Mr. Earl Brookover of Kansas. And those three visited with me on several occasions each year at the University of Nebraska. Mm-hmm. And we were having breakfast one morning, and instead of having ham and eggs, we decided to have cereal. And I thought, well, maybe if the feed cost is the most expensive part of feeding cattle, maybe we ought to change the method of preparing the grain. So instead of, like I said, having ham and eggs, we decided to have cereal. And I thought, well, maybe that would be one way to help increase the feed utilization by cattle.
Right.
And so we developed the steam flaking process.
So you were always thinking about this all the time, weren't you? That's wonderful to have that sort of insight and everything. And as you say, you were on the faculty of the University of Nebraska and then, of course, at CSU. Is it true that you've taught over 10,000 students?
Yes.
What was that? What's that like when you look back on that?
Well, I taught at three different universities. University of Minnesota, University of Nebraska, and also at Colorado State University. So at those three schools, I had about 2,000 to 3,000 students at each place. And so I kept a record on all of my students and their grades, and I counted through and came over with over 10,000.
Wow. So really the role of education has been pretty big in your life, hasn't it?
It has. It's been very interesting, very helpful to me too.
Sure. I read a statement from you. It said, in your estimation, water and food are the most important ingredients of life. How did this help shape and influence all that you've accomplished?
Well, in the early days when I started university work, I was invited to one of the international conventions in Italy. And after I finished my presentation, I said, you know, water plus food equals life. And that caught the attention of the United Nations in the World Bank. And so that gave me the opportunity to travel to about 32 different countries.
Wow. So when it catches the attention of the United Nations, I think you've got something there. You also wrote a book on the history of Catch-a-Calf contest at the National Western Stock Show. Talk a little bit about that and your passion for that program.
Well, I've always been interested in 4-H Club.
Mm-hmm.
And 4-H Club, of course, is one of the best clubs that you can join. And when you're a 4-H Club member, you learn to do a lot of things by yourself and enjoy competition. Right. That's what I liked.
And it gives you a responsibility to something else other than yourself, too, right?
You're right. I like to see young people work with livestock.
Well, that's terrific. And of course, in these strange times that we're going through, we will not be having an annual Citizen of the West dinner, but in 2013, you were named Citizen of the West. How'd that make you feel?
Well, I was very humble. I thought, well, you know, I should be thankful that so many other people were awarded this award. So I feel very humbled to join those groups.
Good. Well, Dr. Matsushima, Stock Show President and CEO Paul Andrews simply calls you a living legend, further stating you changed things forever in the world and that you're one of the most important people in the history of the livestock industry. I think that's something we can all agree with, and certainly one of the reasons you've been included in this Icons of the Stock Show video that this interview will be part of. As you look back, what do you feel is the most meaningful accomplishment that you have given the industry? What are you most proud of?
Well, I don't know. I go back and look at my records sometime, but I keep wondering, well, I probably had some other people help me, and certainly my family and other leaders helped me.
Sure. But what are you most proud of? What are you happiest with what you've done?
I don't know.
You don't know. Well, you've done so much, I guess there's a lot to choose from, isn't there? Now, here's something interesting. I understand that longevity runs in your family, and you are a centenarian, having recently turned 100 years old. There are only 300,000 centenarians in the entire world out of billions in the population. What's your secret to becoming a centenarian?
I don't have any secret, but I live each day and take what comes.
And just deal with it.
Well, I take 3 meals every day. I take a shower every night, and I go to bed with the chickens.
Right.
And I wake up before sunrise.
Wow. And it's done you well. You look wonderful. Dr. John Matsushima, really a research pioneer and international beef leader. Thank you so much for being with us today, and thank you for all the contributions that you have given us so freely.
Thank you.
Thank you.